Well, hi, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you today with a tag. I had a goal at the beginning of the summer that I was going to go through some old tags that have been on my list of things to do, so to speak, and actually do them, get them put out. And I've put out quite a few tags, but I have not really whittled away at the list that I wanted to, the tags that I wanted to do. And so this is one of those tags from last year that I meant to do, didn't get it done. I had all the questions wrote down and just didn't get it done. So anyway, this is going to be the W tag, and this was originally done by Jim at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. And as many of you know, he did a whole series of these tags, the alphabet tags from A to Z, and he did a wonderful job, very creative. I didn't do all of them because at times some of his questions I didn't know what to put in for answers. He mentions books that I just haven't read, and so it wouldn't have been much fun having me do the tag. But anyway, I got to going through the W tag, and I thought I could probably get this done. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, the W tag, and it was done by Jim at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. Go check out his channel if you haven't done that. He does wonderful, wonderful work. I think he is on a bit of a vacation right at the moment for a few weeks, but he will be back, he said. So here we go. Question number one, prompt number one. W is for werewolves. Have you read any books about werewolves? Now, that is definitely not a genre that I typically read, but like many Americans and like many people around the world, the Twilight series, I did read that. My wife was reading it, and I wanted to see what was the big deal. And of course, all those movies came out, and we ended up seeing those movies multiple times. BookTube, this is not because necessarily I liked them. I got dragged to them. I'm going to blame my wife for that. But anyway, I have read some books with werewolves in it. That would be the Twilight series. It also had some vampires in it. And of course, you had Team Jacob and Team Edward. And yeah, I read them. What can I say? So number two, W is for witch. What is the last book you read about a witch? Okay, so I'm not going to include the Harry Potter stuff that I went through last school year at the end, second half of the school year, because I'm going to use that for question number three. So if I'm not including the Harry Potter series, the last book about witches that I read was The Witches, Salem, 1692, and this is by Stacy Schiff. She did a history of the Salem witch hangings and the witch trials. Very, very good book. If you have never read that, you need to go read it. She gives a very thorough account of what living in Salem was like, the witch scare, the life of women. She did such a fabulous job of breaking down what it was like to be a woman, with relatively few rights whatsoever. Being basically under the thumb of the husband and having to do what the husband said, and she does a fabulous job with the history of women during that time period. I thought that was really good. So number three, W is for wizard. Who is your favorite literary wizard? Again, I have not read very many books that involve wizards. I can literally count them on one hand. Now, I read, like I said, the last half of the school year, I went through the first three Harry Potter books, and I think my favorite wizard is Albus Dumbledore. He's a very kind old wizard who runs the school of Hogwarts that Harry Potter attends, and most of you have already read that series, so I'm not going to begin to try to tell you about it because you're going to be much more informed than I am because I haven't read them all, or I was listening to them on audiobook. But anyway, I liked them better on audiobook than I did actually reading them, but I want to someday give them a second chance reading them. They were okay. Number four, W is for women writers. What percentage of the books you read or you read are written for women? Okay, so what I did was I went back at my list of books, and I just went back to January 1st up to this point, so half of the year basically. I've read 52 books, and 17 of those have been by women. So that number, it gets higher, it gets lower. I honestly do not pay attention to is this book written by a woman or a man? I could care less. As long as they can write and tell a story, I'll read it. So I don't pay a lot of attention to that. Number 5, W is for war. What is your favorite book about World War I? Okay, so I went back through my reading list again and picked out a couple of them from the last few years. The last one that I read is possibly my favorite if we're talking fiction, and it was Fall of Giants by Ken Follett. It was absolutely fabulous, and it wasn't just about the war. It dealt with all of the social issues that were going on all across Europe that helped to, cause all the upheaval that was going on during the World War I era. But I really, really liked that book. But that was a fiction book. So if we look at nonfiction, I went back and I read a book by A.J.P. Taylor called The First World War. It was an illustrated history. Did a fabulous job of telling the story and then giving the picture history all the way through. And I liked that book. There was another one, and I could not remember the name of the author, but it was a full history of World War I, and it actually did it from the European point of view, and then it did it from the Asian point of view, and then from the African point of view. And that was really neat. It showed it on, it was from the Western Front, the Eastern Front, and then the African Front. And that was very, I enjoyed that because you never get to read anything about the African Front in World War I. There's just not a lot about it out there, at least that I've seen anyway. And that was nice to get more of a viewpoint of what was going on there. Another one that I read within the last year or two was called The Trigger, Hunting the Assassin Who Brought the World to War by Tim Butcher. And that was actually not done all about the war itself, but just about the region. And the author was basically hunting down the story of Gavrilo Princip. And, of course, he killed the Archduke, and which triggered the whole war and got the war started. But it talked a lot about the just the ethnic issues that they have, the cultural issues that they have down in the Balkans region, and explained the beginnings of World War I and what was going on there. And it was a really neat book, a little bit different, the way, the style, the way he wrote that. I enjoyed that. Number 6, W is for Washington, White House, worst. Would you consider James Buchanan to be the worst U.S. president? Absolutely yes. But I would say Andrew Johnson, based on some of the stuff I've been reading lately, Andrew Johnson's probably a close second. But historically for me, James Buchanan has always been the worst. He had so many issues come across his desk that he just plain out ignored. Or you could tell he was in the Southern politician's back pocket. And my goodness, I would put, reasons for the Civil War starting, I would put James Buchanan right up there at the top of the list. He was the worst president at the worst time. If you could have there were several other candidates you could have put in as president, and they would have done a better job than James Buchanan, the do-nothing president. He really, really irritated me. When you're sitting in a time period of the Civil War where or the build up to the Civil War, where domestic issues should be your biggest concern. They are left and right, all kinds of things going on. And where is his mind? He's occupied with foreign policy. And it blows my mind. You got so many things happening in your own backyard. Why are you worrying about what's going on across the fence in the neighbor's yard? So anyway, I could get going on that for an even longer rant, but we'll just settle for that answer. All right, so W is for Warhol. Warhol said, art is whatever you can get away with. Would you consider Away from the Flock in 1994 by Damien Hirst, or My Bed 1999 by Tracey Emin to be art? And no, absolutely not. I looked those up online because I wasn't familiar with them. That is not art. Art, to me, it isn't just what can you get away with. It is you actually have to have a skill or something that sets you above everybody else. Whether it be in drawing, painting, sculpture, or and there's other mediums of art. Music can be art. Instruments can be art. But what all of those have, the common theme for all of those is there is something in them that makes you better than the next person. That's what art is to me anyway. And those two examples, Away from the Flock and My Bed, that is not art at all. But anyway, that's my thoughts and feelings on it. All right, so for this last one, W is for wood, the log cabin prompt. You are in a log cabin with no internet, no Kindle. There are 6 books in the cabin. They are Meridian by Alice Walker, The Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, Massey Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear, The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, Fingersmith by Sarah Walters. Which of these books would you read first? Which would you read last? You may also rank the books if you wish. Well, this is pretty simple. I've only read one, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. None of the others I've ever read. I've only heard of one of the other ones, and that was only because of Seinfeld, Meridian. So you guys can scramble it up for me, and I will read them in any order. Because I've never read them. I have no idea which one would be best, which one would be worst. I did like The Time Machine, though. So anyway, BookTube, that is the W tag. Thank you to Jim at Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff for creating this and all of the alphabet tags that he created. And it was a lot of fun when these were going around watching everybody's tag. But anyway, I'm glad to get this one knocked off the list of things to do. So I hope you enjoyed this, BookTube. Till next time. Happy reading.